Campaign 86, the DFL debate, the first of two new special reports as the candidates in the September 9th primary election meet face-to-face. Now your host, Pat Miles.
Good evening, everyone. One of the biggest debates in this election campaign has been about debates and whether to have them, and if so, how many debates there should be. St. Paul Mayor George Latimer and incumbent Governor Rudy Perpich could not agree on it. The governor refused to debate unless the mayor released his income tax returns. When Latimer made his tax forms public, Governor Perpich agreed to two joint appearances arranged by the League of Women Voters. But league policy is to include all candidates who pay the filing fee. In the DFL, there are 5. Latimer wanted an exclusive debate facing only Governor Perpich. But in the end, he had to settle for what he could get, and Perpich and one of the two others. The first 2 weeks ago in Duluth, the other tonight in St. Paul. We're going to show you excerpts from this league-sponsored debate taped earlier this evening at the World Theater. 4 of the 5 candidates were present, including Mayor Latimer, Governor Perpich, Andrew Olson, and Phil Rattay. They were joined by the Minneapolis League president and a panel of reporters. This is very likely the last time Perpich and Latimer will appear together before the election. Their sharpest exchange of the evening came in response to a question about what they and the others would do about the problems of unemployment.
We started the program 3 years ago, and jobs was our main issue. We recognized that Minnesota had to lower their taxes, and there were a number of things that we had to do. So we had a $1.4 billion reduction in taxes to help the entire state of Minnesota, so that we got rid of that stigma of being an anti-business or an anti-job environment state. We invested in education, $855 million, and that helps the schools throughout the state of Minnesota to prepare our young people for the world of tomorrow. We've had, in the area of agriculture, for the farms, we've had the best farm program of any state in the union. It's very difficult to be in agriculture, but if you're a farmer in Minnesota, you're much better off being in Minnesota than being in any other state. We proposed a RIM legislation, which will take fragile lands out of production, marginal lands out of production. It'll help the farmer. That'll be a $40 million program for 15 years. We proposed a Greater Minnesota Fund, in which we will put money into the applied research and make the secondary, post-secondary institutions the centers, and from that we'll spin off the jobs. In northeastern Minnesota, again, we have helped stabilize that industry, and with our Department of Economic Development, we have helped 300 businesses in Minnesota, and 85% of that effort was in rural Minnesota. And so you have to compare what rural Minnesota compared to rural areas of other states, and you also have to compare the mining areas of northern Minnesota to mining areas of other parts of the country, and you'll see how much better we are doing, much, much better. And it's because of that effort that those areas are doing better, and we will continue with these programs in economic development, the Greater Minnesota Fund, the Reinvest in Minnesota, and keep our support in education, because that is the best way that we can meet the challenges of the future.
I don't know of anyone in Minnesota, except for this governor, who thinks that the industry on the range has been stabilized, or who thinks that the farmers of Minnesota are better off than farmers elsewhere. Last year, we lost 5,000 more farm families, more than any other state in the nation. There are even more in jeopardy right now. As far as the range is concerned, we have lost more people from St. Louis County in the past years since the last census than all but 3 counties in America. The hemorrhaging continues. It will continue as long as we continue to fritter away our energy and leadership on looking for quick fixes, the Saturn plant, the mega mall, and efforts of that kind. We've got to diversify within the mining industry, for example. Canada has invested in that. The National Geological Survey at the university is prepared to invest its research in that area, and that is where the taconite industry began at the University of Minnesota. And this administration has failed to invest in that kind of research at the University of Minnesota. And this administration, when it had a deficit, is the one that withdrew the $10 million to diversify small and medium-sized business in the range as well. We must reinvest in rural Minnesota using local strategies. We must continue our effort to help the farmer, but we also must examine our state government and find out how many of those jobs being performed in St. Paul could be better performed by decentralizing and delivering the service out into rural Minnesota as well as into the Northeast. If we do all of those things and we target our efforts and bring the total overhead, the unemployment compensation law has to be brought. This administration, this has to be brought into line. This administration, after 4 years, has still not offered an unemployment bill. We need to do all of those things. Until we do, we're not going to find recovery on the range or in rural Minnesota.
Thank you. Mr. Olson?
It's a bunch of nonsense. What we need to do is reestablish the productive industries that we've had in Minnesota. Let's get the farms back so they're healthy again. Let's get the Iron Range producing, and let's get the factories going. And the only way we're going to do that is, and speaking of the farm situation now, is to establish a debt moratorium that former Governor Floyd B. Olson did in the 30s. Boom, no more farm foreclosures. And call for a resolution on the part of the governor and the legislatures for cheap credit, 2 to 4%, for production, for production only, and establish a parity price so the farmer can have his cost of production covered as well as return on investment and a reasonable profit.
Olson went on to say he would reorganize the banking establishment, which he feels is the culprit in our financial difficulties. Philip Rattay said we need fresh ideas, such as making use of wood waste in northern Minnesota. Another topic of debate arose out of a hypothetical question. What would you do with the extra money if the state had a budget surplus?
We need a total reform of the spending and taxing habits of Minnesota's government. I would recommend, first of all, when I am governor, I intend to call in all of the managers and the representatives of the unions of the public employees for the state and talk about what improvements for productivity they could have implemented over the past years, but have failed to do for lack of, either because of barriers of politics or lack of opportunity, or indeed, in some cases, lack of the capacity or financial ability to do so. So productivity is a very important effort. Spending controls are the heart of any tax reform. In the city of St. Paul, we have spent 10% under the inflation rate over the past 10 years. We have today in St. Paul about 20% fewer employees than when I became mayor. And yet, I think the service delivery system is as good as it ever was. Therefore, that proves we can be much more productive. Secondly, I would reinvest any surplus in bringing the tax rates down, all of the tax rates. We have to totally reform our tax system besides our spending controls. We ought to take the 70 separate property classifications, reduce them to 3 or 5. We would then reduce the income tax nominal rate as well as the effective rate. We would broaden and make uniform with the federal income tax, our present income tax. And if we do those things, we can have a more accountable system. We also should be rewriting the foundation aid formula, which right now penalizes school districts which are not well endowed with high property valuation. If we reinvest in bringing more stability in our tax system and at the same time bring better control on spending, we can in fact look to a great future in Minnesota.
Governor Perpich?
We had a surplus in the budget after doing a lot of work internally in state government and having 200-some thousand people go back to work. We reduced taxes, $1.4 billion. We increased aid to education, $855 million. I believe that if we're going to be competitive in worldwide markets, that the effort has to be in education. And so therefore, most of the monies would go for education. I would have full-day kindergarten classes. I try to have pilot projects for K through 3 to have smaller classes, maybe 15 student-teacher ratio. So in the whole entire area of K-12, we would come in and help as far as the financial aid. Our AVTIs in our community colleges, to have daycare centers at each and every one of our AVTIs. Make the AVTIs the center of taking people that are in human services or dislocated farmers or miners, that they could be evaluated and as parents that they could have daycare right at the institution, and then so we would help them through the 2 years of the ABTI and help them get into the job market. At the university, we'll continue with the focus. That's very, very important that we make that university one of the best in the nation. At the state university systems, the Greater Minnesota Fund. The Greater Minnesota Fund is really what's going to be the answer to rural Minnesota. That through those universities, those state universities and post-secondary institutions, that we will put monies for applied research, and then from the spin-offs, that we'll have long-term loans at lower interest rates so that those companies, that those people, those entrepreneurs with those ideas will start up in those areas. And then in the area of taxes, of course, property tax. That has to be also a priority with education. And what we'll do is the classification system. We have too many classes at the present time. We also, the commercial industrial is excessive in Minnesota. And plus, I think that we as a state should pick up that local levy, the local levy that goes for school purposes.
Thank you. Mr. Rattay?
Well, gentlemen, I think you all dropped the ball. I think what we ought to do with any state surplus is we ought to return it to the people who it came from, the taxpayers. The taxpayer has been a forgotten animal and a forgotten person in most of these campaigns for governor, on both the Republican side and on the DFL side. If there is a surplus, I think we would have Governor Perpich to thank for it. It is interesting that anyone from the media at a time of a major campaign would even intimate that we might have a surplus. I think it indicates the current administration has done a good job.
Philip Rattay called for new priorities, and he explained his idea for manufacturing what he calls aquahol, a mixture of water and ethanol to create new jobs. Andrew Olson said the question really didn't matter because he believes there won't be a budget surplus. He preferred to discuss his ideas for plasma and laser technology to revitalize the state's economy. We'll be back with more from the debates from the DFL candidates in just a moment.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Right now, your Nissan dealer is saying yes to great deals on new cars from Sentras and Stanzas to the awesome 300ZX. And Nissan is now making it even easier to own a new truck by saying
Yes.
to 5.7 Nissan-sponsored financing or save with $500 cash back from Nissan. So, come on down to your Nissan dealer now, because he's going to say yes!
If you're looking for big savings, see one of these Minnesota Nissan dealers now.
Nothing can compare to the real savings at Ethan Allen's summer sale.
Oh, it's all beautiful, thanks to Ethan Allen's decorating service. You know it's free, whether you're buying a lamp or furnishing a house. When it comes to furniture stores, there really is a difference.
From furniture to home furnishings, discover the Ethan Allen difference at Ethan Allen's summer sale.
See your Twin Cities Ethan Allen Gallery.
He's a boy from the city. She is a child of the country. Finding each other should have been perfect, except for two things. He's a stranger in dangerous Cullen territory, and she is a Cullen. And if you're hot for her, you're playing with fire.
Drop the gun!
Bullies. Rated R. Starts Friday at select theaters.
Hot foot back to school at Famous Footwear. Hot shoes, hot, hot at the right price. No. Get them while they're hot at Famous Footwear.
Look, Mom, Transformers.
Hot shoes.
Skimmers for me for $21?
Really hot. Leather boat locks, $19. Hot news.
Leather booties only $29?
Hot shot. Get them while they're hot at Famous Footwear. Get them while they're hot.
Welcome back to Campaign 86, the DFL debate. Taped highlights of an hour-long debate held earlier this evening. Welfare reform is a highly controversial topic. The DFL contenders were asked how they would change the present welfare system.
Mayor Latimer?
The key to welfare reform is to treat people like human beings and citizens and not like clients. Right now, we have a system that renders people dependent, that in effect tells people that if they do try to work and get out of the welfare trap, they will be penalized by withdrawal of their medical benefits, for example, for themselves and their children. Other states have taken leadership in this area. Massachusetts, Michigan, California. When the Senate Subcommittee on Welfare calls for testimony, they call those states and those governors. They don't call on Minnesota anymore because we haven't done anything in this area. We have yet another commission which has been appointed. A commission cannot govern, only a governor can govern. The fact is, we need to enter into a contract with individuals. We must, as a community, say to them that we have a bargain with you, that we will do everything we can to help to render you self-sufficient, and you will make your commitment to work also. If it takes a little more training, a little more help in finding a job, if it takes some education or it takes helping out your child in daycare, whatever it takes, we as a community will help you. And it will be more affordable to work than not to work. We have not done that. My contract idea, which I've proposed some 2 months ago, is the basis on which the welfare recipient can be humanized, and all of us will start looking down on welfare. Welfare will be able to say farewell to welfare because people want to work if we just give them an opportunity. I'm convinced other states have shown the way. We ought to start showing the way now. If we do that, it will not be cheaper in the short run. In the long run, it will be humanizing and elevating and also more productive and more economical. That's the direction I hope Minnesota will take when I am governor.
The effort that we have made, of course, to get people off of the human service roles is to create jobs. And we have been the most successful of any state in the union. We have 210,000 more people working today than we did in 1983. In fact, we have more people working, new jobs created from 1980 to 1985 than our 4 neighboring states combined. The problem in the United States today is the national policy of imports is just wiping out many of our basic industries. And that's what's happening to the miners, that's what's happening to the farmers, and a number of other industries. And so what we have to do is create the jobs. B, the mayor's program talks about taking 10,000 people off the welfare rolls per year. In 1984, we took more than 10,000 people off the welfare rolls. Our MEAD program, which is we subsidize wages to get into the private sector. We had 17,000 people that are now employed in the private sector because of that program alone. Now, I came from poverty. We got our poverty because of a good educational system and because of opportunities and jobs were created. And so our plan is to have child care centers at our AVTIs and our community colleges, for the single-parent families and for displaced workers, that we will have an evaluation and then give them that training at that AVTI or that post-secondary institutions, and then make sure that the jobs are there, that we create those jobs. And so we have to attack this on all fronts, and that's exactly what we've been doing. We've been trying to create jobs through many types of programs. And you can't just talk about jobs just internally. You have to talk about creating that good business climate and the opportunities for investment from within the state and outside the state. In the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, we have 97,000 from 1980 to 1985, 97,000 new jobs. In the same period of time, St. Paul lost 1,500 jobs.
Also during tonight's debate, the candidates were asked their positions on mandatory drug testing, whether they support or oppose efforts to raise the 55-mile-per-hour speed limit, what qualities they would seek in appointing someone to fill a vacancy on the Minnesota Supreme Court, and whether they think it's proper to deploy Minnesota National Guard troops in Central America. We'll hear veteran political correspondent Pat Kessler's remarks on some of these issues and the candidates' closing statements right after this.
A foolish prank.
We're American citizens.
Why are you in Russia? An ordeal of terror. There will be no trial, no justice. Born American, it's their only crime and their only hope. Born American, rated R.
Starts Friday, August 29th at a theater near you.
Now, during Labor Day weekend only, Levitt's has top prices on Bassett Royal Crest bedding to only $88 each piece. Twin size, cut to $88. Full size, cut to $88. Queen size cut to $88. King size cut to $88. Any size Royal Crest mattress or foundation, only $88 each piece. King and queen sizes sold as sets only. No wonder they say, you love it at Levitt.
My Harry spoils me. He knows I hate to do housework, so when he found 12-month interest-free financing on GE major appliances at Best Buy's Labor Day sale, that did it. The offer ends Monday, so Harry raced right down to Best Buy and he bought me a GE washer and a dryer and an oven just to make my life easier. GE interest-free financing and Best Buy superstores have made being a homemaker fun again. Hi, hon. I'm home. What's for dinner?
Better hurry. Toyota's all-out sellout is almost over. The factory challenged Toyota dealers to sell everything they've got by month's end, so they're making their best deals on the biggest inventory of the year. Everything from sporty Celica GTs to dependable Corollas. Their prices may never be lower. Your trade-in may never be worth more. If you need financing, they want to help. Now's the best time to make the best deal of the year. See your Toyota dealer now. You've got to hurry. Toyota's all-out sellout is almost over.
Hey, bartender.
Yeah, what'll it be?
Just ask me, what do you have?
What'll you have?
Bobbin flavor.
What'll you have?
Bobbin flavor. Give me a Pabst, a blue ribbon, Pabst Blue Ribbon beer. Rockin' taste is what I favor. True blue taste is what I savor. Give me a Pabst, blue ribbon, Pabst Blue Ribbon beer. You know what we like.
Welcome back to Campaign 86, the DFL debates. Excerpts from tonight's debate on the stage of the World Theater in St. Paul. Again, this is likely to be the last time Governor Rudy Perpich and Mayor George Latimer share the same platform prior to the election on September 9th. Actually, 4 of the 5 DFL candidates were present, as you'll see now as they offer their closing statements.
A number of my friends have asked me, what am I doing running for governor? And I expect there's some in the audience that might feel the same way. This is what I'm doing for governor. No more Frasers. I've run against Don Fraser twice for Congress, and the election of Mrs. Fraser as lieutenant governor would be an abomination. I had a good vibes about George until he chose Arvon Fraser. What that ticket stands for is gay rights, abortion, and gun control. And unfortunately, a small clique in the DFL has made that the platform of the DFL. I disavow that part of the platform. I am not for gay rights. I am not for abortion. I am not for gun control, and George Latimer is. Don't vote for Latimer if you don't want gay rights. If you want abortion, vote for Latimer. If you want gun control, vote for Latimer.
Mayor Latimer?
I'll try not to waste any of my precious...
I'm very sorry.
I'm sorry.
You get the last word.
Good. I think so.
Mr. Olson.
Yes, the choice between the voters September 9th is going to be very straightforward. Between myself as a productive individual versus the mayor or the governor who's supporting the post-industrial service economy fanaticism. Governor Perpich is an asset of Control Data Corporation, the Rockefeller Chase Manhattan Bank, and when he goes out east to visit with the LTV Corporation, he visits Smith Barney and Goldman Sachs. And these are the people that are encouraging the disinvestment of the productive industries in this country, in this state, and are advocating mega malls and racetracks. And the mayor himself is an asset of the Humphrey Institute and advocates real estate speculation such as the Gaultier Plaza. Now, these assets that our mayor and governor are being supported by.
Thank you. Governor Perpich?
On September 9th, Minnesotans will have an opportunity to continue the work we started 4 years ago. We have met the challenges and the hardships, and we've made progress. We have more people working today than ever before in the history of our state. We have reduced taxes $1.4 billion. We have increased aid to education 26%, $855 million. We have helped the farmer and the miner and the poor in the cities. We've removed that stigma of being an anti-business state. And I think of the people of Minnesota as a Minnesota family, and that I'm a hard-working member of that family that wants to improve life for all of us. I love Minnesota, I love its people, and I want to continue to work hard for all of Minnesota.
Thank you. Mayor Latimer.
25 years ago, Nancy Moore Latimer and I chose Minnesota. We chose Minnesota because we found it to be a place where hard work would be rewarded, but beyond that, where there was a sense of community, where we could raise a family, where people cared about each other. In the last 25 years, our evaluation has been reinforced. We've now raised our family, all 5 children. Life has been good for us in Minnesota. I'd like to make sure that life will be just as good for our children and their children as it's been for this generation. I think the qualities that I believed in Minnesota have been reinforced. The last 50,000 miles that I've traveled, my 10 years as mayor, my years as a school board, and my understanding of rural Minnesota and the Northeast has been deepened, and my love for Minnesota has been deepened. I do think our public household is not in good shape. I look to all of Minnesota, Republicans, Independents, and Democrats, to pull together and regain the common ground with me and make Minnesota even greater than it is today.
WCCO television Capitol correspondent Pat Kessler has been following the primary election campaign for several months now, and he joins us tonight to analyze the impact of tonight's debate. Pat, based on the excerpts that we saw anyway tonight, it appeared as if Latimer, who was on the attack during the last debate, has somewhat changed his strategy now. It was very calm.
Well, he has, in fact. It was kind of quiet tonight as opposed to the debate 2 weeks ago in Duluth. The people who know about these things are the people who run political campaigns, and they say it's not as important to win a debate as it is not to lose it. If a candidate looks bad, that's a lot more damaging than the benefit he might gain from winning. Now, how's that for political logic, you know? The exposure itself is very helpful for people who are running for office to gain impressions, people who are going to vote to gain impressions as well. I'm not sure that the issues tonight, the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit or drug testing or even Central America, are going to be enough to move great numbers of people, but some people probably will, Pat, make up their minds. You mentioned George Latimer. Yes, George Latimer indeed has softened his attack a little bit. He says he used the first few months of the debate to point out the differences between Mayor Latimer and Governor Perpich, and now he's the warm and fuzzy George. He's trying to get people to like him a little bit more.
Based on your observation, was there a winner in the debate tonight?
Well, as I said, if you don't lose, you're a winner. And in that, using that kind of logic, both candidates, George Latimer and Rudy Perpich, were winners, as they were the first time.
So you think they came out equally?
It's a wash, I believe. In 2 debates, they weren't really debates. The Latimer people were calling them question and answer sessions. They were not one-on-one debates. So I think it's a wash overall. That's how everything ends up when you are so very cautious when you're a political campaign manager.
All right, interesting. Thank you, Pat, for coming in tonight. Next Thursday night, by the way, at this same time, we'll be back with another special news report when the Independent Republicans debate at the World Theater in St. Paul. That is immediately following the 10 p.m. news on September 4th for more in-depth coverage of the debates in Campaign 86. We thank you for being with us tonight. Good night, everyone.
It's Freeway Ford Silver Anniversary 10-day closeout sell-a-thon. And now through Labor Day, you'll save the most on your new Ford truck. From light trucks to conversion vans, get up to $1,000 cash back and get as low as 6.9% on most Ford trucks. Plus special factory discount packages. We've got tons of trucks on sale. Right now, get new conversion vans as low as $14,995. Hurry in. Our 10-day closeout sell-a-thon, it ends Labor Day. Only at Freeway Ford. Come on in. 35W at 98th Street exit in downtown Bloomington.
This is the gallery of silent sufferers.
They have hay fever but hesitate to take an anti-allergy product that may make them feel drowsy. Now advances in treatments for hay fever